Disclaimer. Everything talked about in this episode is not financial advice. Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Case in Point podcast. We have a guest all the way from another multiverse. We have Big T, Tanner Island. Here he is.
It's me! Apparently I'm from a different multiverse. Who knew?
It's Big T. Big T's from a different multiverse.
Yep.
I just can't say which place that is because copyright.
That's fair. That's fair.
Before the podcast, you mentioned you wanted to talk a little bit about crypto. And since you and me know about crypto, but most of my audience members don't, can you explain in layman's terms what cryptocurrency is and why it's worth anything? For ease of understanding, let's just stick to Bitcoin.
Okay, so we're going to start off small. So Bitcoin is essentially, some people, you might hear blockchain. It's on the blockchain. It's essentially on a ledger system. That's what the blockchain is. So
you're able to track transactions.
Yes.
It's like a public ledger. Everyone can look at it and see when a transaction takes place.
Yeah. Yes. The ledger is constantly being updated by each transaction. Yes.
So it's a ledger online that everybody and anybody can track.
It is not necessarily online, but everyone can see it, and some people choose to put it online. Yes.
Okay.
So
every time we refer to a blockchain, we're referring to a public ledger.
Yes. And each crypto has their own public ledger or blockchain, but we're going to try to narrow it down to Bitcoin. So, for Bitcoin, there's two important numbers for each. Well, there's two important numbers each person has. One of which is your private number or private key and the public key. So it's very similar to a bank and a debit card, your own personal debit card number, which is very public.
PIN number.
PIN number for your card that only you should know for security reasons. So only you can use, in the same way that only you can use your card because only you have a PIN number, only you can use your Bitcoin because you have a private key.
Yeah. That's how the security works. Why is it worth anything? Why is one Bitcoin right now worth almost $19,000?
So with all currencies, there's a form of trust that people have to, in order for any currency to have any value, there's a form of trust between the currency and the people using it. So with the US dollar, we used to be on the gold standard. And
until the early 1900s.
Until the early 1900s, yes. And so when we moved off of that gold standard, trust was lost. So at that time, the US dollar lost half of its value.
Which led us to the dirty 30s.
Now, with crypto, it's super, they call it volatile at the moment because no one knows whether to trust it or not. So
there seems to be, they don't know what they're trusting in. There's, at least to me, that's why it keeps going. You'll see it spike up to $60,000 and go all the way down to $19,000. So it seems that they don't know why they're trusting it or what they're trusting in. What is it that they're putting trust into?
So this is kind of the difference between our current currency, like centralized and decentralized currencies. So our US dollar is centralized because we're trusting the banks or the government to keep their promise to us that it's worth something. Now with decentralized currencies, there's
like
Bitcoin, there's no third entity to keep that promise.
There's no government.
There's no government involved. It's just me and whoever I'm doing my transaction with.
So there's a finite amount. There's a certain amount of Bitcoin where there's not a certain amount of dollar bills. Because a government can print as many dollar bills as they desire. But Bitcoin, we know that right now, every 10 minutes or so, 12 are being made.
12 are being mined, yes. Yeah, that's part of the reason why inflation of the US dollar went up so much, right? It's because we keep printing more and more US currency, but don't have any more things to back it up besides the US word that we've had before they decided to print more.
And it's starting to fail. You see that in inflation. I remember just in 6th grade, I wanted to buy a local, it's kind of like a slushy type thing. I wanted to buy a local slushy, and it was worth, I could bring $1 and buy a 32 ounce.
Mm-hmm.
Now I bring
$1.51
yeah,
currently.
It's crazy. That's because people are starting to lose trust in the United States government. And when people lose trust in the United States government, because there's no gold backing it up like there used to be, the price of the dollar goes down. The value of the dollar goes down.
For the most part, yes. With crypto or Bitcoin, it gets a little weird because trust is mostly based off of the amount of hype or information people know about it, but not a whole lot of people know a whole lot about crypto, which is kind of why we're here.
Yeah. So you were talking about centralized and decentralized. So centralized is, correct me if I'm wrong, when a government or an entity has control over the currency. And decentralized is when there's not a specific entity, but when it's an entire open market that is controlling the currency.
For the most part. So so centralized is like similar to the US dollar, where the government can choose to print more at will, and they kind of have, and they can pull as much currency out of the system as they want. Where with cryptos, they can't do that because, well, with decentralized, like crypto, you can't do that because everyone is part of that system. And so there's no third party completely in control because we're all in control.
Because everybody can see the ledger.
Because everyone can see the ledger.
Where the only people who can see the ledger in a centralized system is the center, or in this case, the American government.
Yes.
So we're trusting that they're keeping an accurate ledger, where in Bitcoin or other cryptos, there's no trust that somebody's keeping an accurate ledger, because the ledger is being updated on computers constantly and being double checked by everybody.
Yes, so that's part of having your own crypto wallet, is when you have your own wallet, your computer is also keeping track of that ledger and works with all the other computers with your wallet.
With a wallet. Yeah, anybody's wallet.
So that when you're connected to the internet, is always constantly double checking itself with all the other ledgers out there. So every person who has any piece of Bitcoin also has the ledger, and all of those ledgers are cross-referencing each other all the time to make sure they're all the same, all up to date.
Making sure that nobody is trying to cheat the system.
Yes. In order to cheat the system, you have to hack 51% of everyone who owns Bitcoin, any Bitcoin.
And that's a lot of people. That's millions of people.
That's millions of people.
So you have to hack millions of people, where in a centralized system, all you have to do is hack the U.S. government.
Yes.
That sounds perfectly safe.
Well, yeah, it's... The U.S. government's hard to hack, but if I had to choose the Pentagon to hack or a million computers simultaneously, I'd probably just choose the Pentagon.
Yeah. Which is one of the reasons Bitcoin continues to go up, is it's so hard to hack.
Yeah, the security in Bitcoin is part of the reason why people like it. So the security in Bitcoin is part of the reason why people are curious about it and want to potentially get into it, is the security aspect.
Just to go over it one more time, centralized is there's an entity controlling the currency, and decentralized is the public is controlling the currency.
Yes. Centralized has some third party saying what it's worth versus decentralized where we all collectively have to agree on what it's worth. Yes.
Next, we're going to get into why the government and the World Economic Forum, which, if you haven't seen their video from the mid-2010s, highly recommend it. There's a famous quote in there, "You will own nothing and you will be happy."
That sounds fun. That's just what I want.
Which is one of the reasons that governments and the World Economic Forum are so against things like Bitcoin, is because people are able to now own their own currency. So it's almost a distraction from the American dollar. It makes that government, our government, the American government, lose power if there's another currency that can be worth more.
Well, it's part of the reason why the U.S. government just making the banking system at the time in the 1700s when the U.S. was founded, just making the banking system at the time doubled the government's power, which now when we threaten to take that banking system away, of course it's going to take power away from the government.
So they've also talked about, well, let's stick with taking away power from the government. Governments don't like that. They tend to like their glorious power. Do you know what they're doing to try and stop Bitcoin?
Currently, they're trying to set up regulations in place to, they'll say, make sure it's safe for society. What they really mean is
2 weeks to slow the spread.
yeah.
Anyways, continue.
So they're trying to currently make it safe for society, but what that ultimately means is find a way to control it. So with cryptos, the reason why they're so secure is that no one person controls it, but also you're the only one who knows your private key. But
or your PIN number.
Or your PIN number.
Yeah.
Same idea.
Same idea as a PIN number.
What they're currently trying to get people to use is places like Coinbase or other third-party crypto wallets.
Different online monies that's centralized.
Yes. Essentially, we were trying to say we don't want to be part of the banking system, and they're going, but hey, you can use cryptos, but here's another banking system we're going to funnel you in.
Basically, they're saying, here's the system we have, and we're just going to try and transfer it online because we sound tech savvy if we do.
Well, yes, but if you use things like Coinbase, I believe there's Coin Vault as well, that makes using cryptos easy. It does make them their use easy, but it also, they'll end up selling your information, your private codes, or your PIN number to the government, so now the government can track who is sending money where, which is exactly what our current banking system tells the government, which is what we're trying to get away from.
Which is what we're trying to avoid, because the less the government knows about our personal lives, the better.
The better, yes.
So, what is the government currently trying to do? Government and the World Economic Forum, which, again, is trying to control everybody so that they own nothing and that they are happy. Remember, you're happy if you own nothing. Brought to you by the World Economic Forum. Nothing is happiness. Do you know why you're not happy, Tanner?
Because the government hasn't told me to be happy?
It's because you own things.
Oh no, it's because I own things. Stop owning things, you'll be happy. Responsibility is a cancer.
It's terrible. You're not allowed to have it. You're not allowed to have that. I don't know what that is, but you're not allowed to have any of it. Anyways, so governments are currently trying to restrict it. Do you know it all?
Currently, so when Bitcoin got its couple first good spikes in like 2018, eventually Tesla was going to start allowing Bitcoin to be able to trade for, they would accept Bitcoin as a currency to be able to buy their cars and other things. Eventually, for some reason, they decided that that was a bad idea and to not accept Bitcoin.
Tesla did, or
Tesla decided to not accept Bitcoin. I'm actually not 100% sure why they decided that. I'm pretty sure it's because the U.S. government stepped in, but I don't remember. I'd have to Google that again.
Disclaimer that you don't know.
Please,
the comments can't kill you.
Please go to the all-seeing oracle, also known as the search bar, for yourself and double check my facts. But
recently, there's been a new second chairman in the Fed, and he has basically declared war on cryptocurrency. It sounds like he wants to try and move cryptocurrency to exclusively government-ran currency.
Yeah.
So that they can control when and where you spend that.
So this goes along with the government's biggest fear with currencies, which is not being able to track it, whether it's from the local level to across country lines.
Did you hear the new legislation that has recently come out on? I actually don't think I don't know how much the government's involved, but certain credit card companies, if you spend money on a firearm, they'll track that you spent money on a firearm.
I have heard a little bit about that. I haven't heard a whole lot because I currently work for a gun shop, and my boss was upset because it would cost him an extra. I'm not going to give a number because I don't know. It would cost him more money just to sell firearms through credit cards. So he was trying to figure out a cash system to get around that loophole, to be able to, because they're not going to say the price of the gun changed. All of that money comes out of the business.
U.S. government, I'm not buying a gun. But if I were, I would go buy a prepaid Visa and use that.
Or even cash.
Or even
cash is good.
Well, problem is I can't go to an ATM. I guess I can go to the bank. I'm just lazy.
Yeah.
But U.S. government, I'm not buying a gun. Definitely not. That's not what I'm doing.
Prepaid Visas are good, but they also have a typically like $2 charge just to put money on it, which is good for them. Like, they need money too.
It's also perfectly fine. I accept that $2 charge to buy my $300 gun.
That's fair.
One of the biggest things that I'm concerned about with crypto is the government taking control of it. And if they do, they'll be able to track absolutely every purchase. They'll be able to track every time I move any money. So even if I don't purchase something, if I just move it from a bank account to another bank account, or I give it to somebody, they're going to be able to track everything that I do.
Yeah.
And if they do that, then they're able to stop me. So let's say they don't like me because I'm a criminal, and I go to try and buy, let's say just some kitchen knives, because I just got out of prison and I want to go buy some kitchen knives because I want to start cooking because I'm changing my life. The government can see that I'm trying to buy kitchen knives, and they can also see I'm a criminal, and then they can go, you know what? No.
Yeah.
With crypto, they can.
Yeah. So this is kind of part of the reason why I don't like third-party websites helping you keep track of your own crypto wallet. Those third-party websites know your name, all the information to access your account, because they're keeping track of it for you.
They're essentially another bank.
Yeah, they're acting in the same place where your bank would. So they have all your information, and the government can turn around and buy that information from them if they wanted to. So depending on how much trust you now have in that third-party website, which is acting like your bank that we were trusting previously, depending on how much trust you have in that third-party website, they could turn around and sell your information to the government that we were trying to keep it away from by using Bitcoin.
So this is not financial advice, but you would personally, if you invested into crypto, you would keep your own wallet to yourself.
Yes, I would do a little bit more research, make my own crypto wallet, and there's many YouTube videos on how to do that safely and securely. But I would make my own crypto wallet on my own hard drive at home. So if there was a fire and something happened to the hard drive, my crypto's gone, but it's on my wallet. It's all secure. I know my PIN. No one else knows my PIN. Just me.
That sounds a lot more secure than a bank having control of your money. Because if you try to buy, I guess not now anymore, but there was a point in Canada that if you were a truck driver and you tried to buy gasoline, your account became frozen.
Yes.
And our system could do something like that.
Well, with the truck drivers in Canada, so the government decided that, and the only reason why they had enough power to do what they did was they declared them as terrorists and decided to freeze first all of their bank accounts, figured out that whose crypto wallets they were still using, froze all of their crypto wallets because they were using, most likely, because they were using third-party sites. There's other ways to figure out who owns which account, but they're way more complicated.
Quite difficult, yeah.
It's quite difficult. Then froze all of their crypto accounts. Then eventually froze their GoFundMe page, which is a whole different debacle, but yes.
So a lot of people are wondering, why would you invest in crypto at all? Why is that something? A lot of people try to invest in gold or invest in silver or invest in land. Why would I, instead of investing in those things, why would I invest into crypto?
So every investment is kind of its own monster. So the value of things is going to shift, rise, fall. The reason why you would potentially choose to invest in crypto instead of gold or stock market at this point was, at this point, not very many entities use crypto. So it's hard to understand why its value, because no one's using it. When more companies decide that it is a valid currency, which is, it's mostly just that trust factor. Everything, whether it's the US dollar, the housing market, gold, whatever, is all going to fluctuate up and down. It's up to how much you're deciding to, and how much other people also decide to trust whatever market you're going into.
It also seems to be a little bit less controllable. So with housing market, let's say I go buy a house or some land. All I have to do if I'm the government to take it is show up with a lot of force. And ta-da, they have it.
Or money, which equates to the same thing.
Some form of force, whether that be aggressive force or the force of money.
They'd have to use their power to
take it.
Yes.
But with crypto, at least with Bitcoin, as long as I have that PIN number, the private key, nobody can take it from me. It's mine.
Yes. No, so even with your current bank account, there's, like, the government can freeze your account. With crypto, as long as it's on your disk drive, unless the government literally shows up to your doorstep and rips it out from your hand, there's no on-off switch that the government can shut off your crypto.
Or anybody.
Anybody.
Nobody can do it, which is why people are trusting it, is because nobody else can touch their stuff.
Yes. Yeah, because we're all interconnected in this system. So if one person can decide, if the system's not set up this way, but if the system were set up that one person could shut off a specific account, or
then it would be centralized.
Then it would be centralized. But if one person would be able to do that, all of us would be able to do that, which is why it's not set up that way, because we don't want people to be able to. I believe. Oh, it might have been Fed. Either way, there's one official document and then a couple other smaller documents that I read. But essentially, the government came out with a statement exactly what the cryptos in general needed to do in order to be accepted in society. One of which was being able to track it better.
So trying to make it more centralized.
Trying to make it more central, allowing the government a little bit more control over specific cryptocurrencies. Another one was just speed. So how fast a transaction could be completed. Currently, Bitcoin, it takes up to 2 or 3 hours for one transaction to be fully completed. The reason why half of them tanked, and you'll also see some of them rise, especially XRP, is the reason why XRP started to rise is because
XRP is it's another currency that isn't Bitcoin. It's another cryptocurrency. So there's a lot of different cryptocurrencies. We've been talking about Bitcoin mostly this episode, but there's hundreds of them. There's hundreds of different cryptocurrencies that are all competing for each other.
the reason why XRP is spiking up is because they got the speed in which you can complete a transaction down to a couple of seconds instead of Bitcoin's couple of hours. What the government's wanting is...
And is it a couple of hours because of the amount of code that has to download?
No. It's how fast the ledger can update. Depending on how different cryptos are coded, some ledgers take longer times to double check between all the other ledgers and fully
So
update.
the communication between a couple million computers is longer in Bitcoin than it is in, like you said, XRP.
Yes. Which is why people started moving why you could see a lot of the cryptos go down, except for a couple of them like XRP, because they've noticed, hey, the government likes this aspect being speed, and we know this one currently exists that's faster. Which people have known for a long time that speed was a downfall of cryptos, but now that the government came out and said it, they're like, oh yeah, it kind of validates cryptos a little bit.
So even though one of the main factors of crypto that keeps crypto powerful and worth anything is decentralization, centralization, aka the government, when they say something, still affects the market of crypto.
Well, it's the same concept between how news can affect the housing market or the stock market. If people hear that Amazon isn't doing too well, well, of course it's going to affect the stock market a little bit.
Or if Joe Rogan says vote Republican, then you're going to have immediately 2 million people sign up as Republican.
Yeah. So it's nothing necessarily different to what we're used to. It's just a different form because cryptos are generally new.
NFTs are a trap. Cool, we did our section on NFTs.
They're important.
Importantly, a trap.
Eventually, they're super
They will
important.
always be a trap.
In the same way that we use US dollars to buy lumber and metals, we can use cryptos to buy these digital assets that currently don't do a whole lot, but eventually will.
So let's go ahead and explain an NFT. So an NFT is a type of cryptocurrency. In current society, if I buy, let's say I buy the Mona Lisa. The way that I know I have the real Mona Lisa is this piece of paper called a validation, and NFTs are basically online versions of this validation record, correct?
NFTs, so they are both the asset and the record. So what I mean by that is...
Where would I use an NFT?
So it depends on the NFT. And currently there's so many different NFTs with different functions, some of which are just literally JPEGs that just look cool, which is why a lot of people think NFTs are a joke, because they can copy paste it and wow, I own one now.
It's because NFTs are a joke.
Well, some of them are. Some of them, however, are not. The ones that can relate to the real world eventually are going to be more valuable. For instance, there was I think it was a Britney Spears concert or something like that, where the backstage pass was an NFT. And it was essentially just you got to watch the video behind the stage of some dude was filming behind the stage, but you needed the NFT backstage pass to be able to watch that.
What NFT stands for? It stands for non-fungible token.
Yes.
Fungible means not recreatable, able to replace or be replaced by another identical item.
Yeah, so duplicatable, non-duplicatable. So non-fungible token, it's not being able to be duplicated. And token is very similar to a coin. A coin specifically deals with currency.
And a token can be transferred for currency.
Yes, it is.
Or traded as a good or a service.
It is the same idea between having the US dollar and going out to buy a computer. You use a coin to buy a token.
Computer is the token, current, and then the
Yes.
coin is the way of buying the token.
Yes. All of this is kept track in your wallet, keeping track of all the ledgers.
Which is your bank account.
Yeah.
That you can only access with a PIN.
Yes.
So an NFT is kind of like a family heirloom that you're keeping in a safety deposit box.
Potentially, yes.
For an analogy. But all on a computer.
What's scary about them, though, is that no one really knows what's worth anything. So
Nobody knows what files online are worth the Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
There's no Mona Lisa of the online yet.
Especially when a lot of them are just art that people don't care.
Have you seen how much these little art pieces are going for? What are they called? I forgot what they're called.
Oh, the ape things?
So on the internet, there's all of these little 8-bit pictures or pictures of designed pictures of gorillas or stuff, and they're selling as NFTs, and they're selling for thousands of dollars. It's insane to watch these things sell. So my understanding is they're almost like a Pokemon card, but only digital. And they can be tracked.
In some ways, yes, they're kind of like a Pokemon card. What would potentially make these things valuable is that there's so many of a specific one out there. So not all of them will be valued the same.
Can they be duplicated?
No. Anyone can make an NFT. But when you make a specific NFT, in this case, Beeples, or 8-bit pictures, when you make them, you could only put a certain amount of them that ever exist and ever will exist.
So let's say that I wanted to make an NFT. I draw a picture of, I draw a little stick figure of me, and I want 10 of them. So I make 10 little stick figures of me online, and I want to sell them. I can sell them as my NFT to 10 people, and only those 10 exist at all.
There will only ever be 10 original case in point stick figures.
And that's why they're worth money. Kind of like art. Kind of like there's only... Why is art worth money? It's because people are willing to spend that much money on it.
Yes. It's kind of the same idea between even shoes. Like, you can buy a $50 pair of shoes, or you can buy a $200 Nike pair of shoes. Very similar design, but one has a Nike swoosh and one doesn't.
So they're paying for the name and the NFT. Because they're only a limited amount.
Yeah, because they're between the limited amount, and some people use them as a way to express themselves. Having specific NFTs in your portfolio, some people believe that tells other people something about them.
Your portfolio being your bank account, which you can only access because you have the PIN.
Yes. Yeah. So those are not very practical uses of NFTs. So there's some we've yet to figure out really good practical uses for NFTs. There's some of them, but not a whole lot at the moment.
Which is why, again, this is not financial advice, why they're absolutely currently useless.
Definitely not a financial advice.
You're not going to.
I'm not going to do it. If I were to invest in cryptos, it would probably be in more coins, less tokens. advice.
Yeah, we are not financially advising anybody. We are not lawyers or anyone smart with money.
Yep.
We are.
I barely trust Kaysen with a Pokemon card.
I definitely don't trust Casey with a Pokemon card.
Something potentially cool about NFTs, because currently they're not very useful in the real world, but they're slowly getting to the point where they are useful.
NFTs are, yeah.
Yeah. So each one does different things. So some of them are actually binding contracts. When you buy an NFT, there's like an actual physical item that follows it. I forget
So
how
the
that
NFT
works.
is linked to the item.
Yeah.
So you take this file or this item online, this digital file. In this case, what you're talking about is a contract. So you write up a contract, and then you take an NFT or this non-fungible token, and you attach it to the contract.
Yeah. So even
so that it can't be duplicated.
Yeah, even transactions between two people are technically a contract. I give you a certain amount of Bitcoin, you give me a certain amount of a different crypto. It's the same idea, except now there's more record of it, but they've attached more real world to it. So there was actually...
It's kind of like adding a signature to it. So not only do you have to put in your PIN, but you have to sign it.
Your PIN is part of the signature. So what I'm talking about is, it'll be better if I just give an example. So there was a TV show. This guy had everything planned out except he needed the rights to the name. Well, they linked the rights to a name to an NFT. And someone else, someone decided to buy the rights to the name of his new TV show out from under him because it was an NFT and it was open to the public. So he had almost everything set up, just someone else bought the name out from under him because it was an NFT, and then he couldn't continue on with his show.
Couldn't continue his show because somebody had just bought the name.
Because it was linked to an NFT, which was out to the public. If it were just normally how it was done.
Whenever someone sells an NFT, it goes public.
Yes, everyone knows who owns what.
So if I want to specifically sell
stuff.
you my NFT, let's say I want Tanner to buy it. How do I stop someone else from buying my NFT?
So there's different markets, because you can trade one-on-one, but there's also third-party sites, kind of the same idea behind why we would use eBay to sell any other real-world item. There's other sites where you can sell your NFTs in an open market, but you don't necessarily have to use those third-party sites. You can trade one-on-one. This NFT that was part of the show title that he was wanting to buy, had every right to buy, was bought out because it was on one of these third-party sites similar to eBay.
Man, that would really suck.
It would suck.
Here's this thing I've been working really hard on. I'm going to put it to the public real quick, and somebody else just bought it.
In order to buy something like the name of the show title, like, you don't expect it to be attached to an NFT, but in this case it was. So it's very interesting, but if it could be, it'd actually be easier than what you think if the world starts shifting to everything's an NFT now, or linked to an NFT, because if our currency system starts using it, then...
So is it almost like is an NFT almost like a baseball card that has a piece of a player's jersey on it? There's only 5, like, for example, let's say there's 10 Babe Ruth cards that have in the card a piece of Babe Ruth's jersey in it. Is it kind of like that? You can't take so somebody else can't go find Babe Ruth's jersey and put it in these cards. They're completely unique because they have Babe Ruth's jersey in them.
In some ways, yes. So each NFT there's only exists in most cases one of that NFT, or there's only so many with Babe Ruth's jersey in the card. It's very similar to having a real world item be super rare. The difference is these are tracked by an online ledger. So instead of
So it's kind of like being tracked by just like all of the like a Bitcoin.
yes,
It's tracked exactly the same as a Bitcoin.
Yes, it is runs off of a very similar blockchain ledger.
Blockchain is a ledger, yeah.
Yes, to determine who owns what digital assets when trades happen, and it's all kept track of. And there's only the same way that there's only so many Bitcoin, there's only so many of certain kinds of NFTs.
But you can create your own NFT.
You can create your own NFT and have the stipulation that there's only so many that exist.
There's only my NFT of this many.
Yes.
So it's, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's like a Pokemon card.
Yeah, if you were... I don't even know who makes Pokemon.
No idea.
I have no clue. But if you were the people who print Pokemon cards, yes. You now become the Pokemon printer who can print your own Pokemon cards and decide how many of there exist out in the world.
Or a signature. It's kind of like your own signature on your artwork. So, like, a validation that this is mine.
Yes. I don't know if you can tell who created it. I'm pretty sure NFTs can tell who created it, how many there are that exist in the world, and that who owns this current one. Each NFT kind of has their own contract behind them. So many of them have little to no real world value.
Little to no real world application.
Yes, they have little to no real world application. However, there are some of them that do. For example, you can create NFTs of, say, you make an NFT, like however many, 20 of them, and you decide to sell them, but as a stipulation or as part of the contract, the people who buy these NFTs also get a t-shirt in the mail, something like that. That the real world item follows the NFT and who owns the NFT.
That's really interesting.
There's not very many of them out there, but it is slowly going to become more and more.
So if someone buys a
relevant.
specific, like if you ever watched Pawn Stars, they sell movie props on there a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like if let's say I have a Superman's cape from the first movie he ever made. I could have an NFT that this is actually Superman's cape from the set, and this is the real costume. This is what they wore on the movie. I could, if somebody bought it from me, I could send them my NFT proving that it's that it is the costume.
Yes. It would be starting to use NFTs as the verification process on what...
Instead of pieces of paper.
Instead of pieces of paper. Of, I guess, contracts of
So it's an online
validity.
record.
Yes. Which is kind of what all these cryptos and different Bitcoins are in the first place.
Is they're all just an online record of... So they're all super trackable while being not trackable at all. How many times they've been transferred, but not where they've been transferred to.
Yeah.
Or who they've been transferred to.
We will always know exactly how many of what exists in the market. We'll always know where that they are moving, but we will never know who they are moving, exactly who they are moving from or who they're moving to.
it seems that a lot of different everything is starting to get decentralized. So, for example, Fortnite is actually a decentralized game if you think about it. You don't have to pay anything to play the Battle Royale game. But it's the most successful game in the past couple of years because anyone and everyone can play it. The only cost is if you want cosmetics. It seems that with crypto and video games, and it's starting to become almost metaversey, all of these online trends tends to be decentralization into an open market for everything. It's which allows governments to have less control.
Yeah, it
Or
forces
entities to have less control.
It's definitely a weird shift because as we're kind of moving towards this metaverse that you mentioned, and which it's definitely different because they're in Fortnite. It is a free game, which kind of makes it more decentralized, and you can pay for these cosmetics. The reason why the metaverse scares me personally is because someone still owns in this case, someone owns Fortnite.
So
Someone
in the
owns-
metaverse, the idea of this NFT,
Mhm.
this is just an idea I had just now. Let's say I bought metaverse property. Could I theoretically attach an NFT to it so that it cannot be duplicated? And this property on the metaverse, nobody has access to but me.
Oh, you haven't. Have you heard of? Oh, I don't remember what it's called. It's like Earth 3 or something. It's like essentially they're trying to make. They made 1-to-1 ratio the Earth, and then started making
blocks?
selling properties on this virtual Earth as essentially NFTs.
So in that case, can somebody just turn that off?
Theoretically, yes.
So what if we get to the point that just like nobody can take my crypto, so I buy Bitcoin from you, I put it in my crypto wallet, where only I have access to my crypto wallet, I could buy a piece of the metaverse and put that into my crypto wallet. So the only person who gains access to it is me.
So, yeah, you can own a piece of this metaverse through an NFT. What potentially scares me about the metaverse is that even though these worlds exist, for example, we said Fortnite, the same threat of if I buy all these cosmetics in Fortnite and then someone decides to shut all the servers for Fortnite off, what happens to all my cosmetics? Do I get my
can I
money
put it
back?
in my wallet so that it's not on a server? Can my wallet be my own server?
That's a good question. It depends.
I don't think I've never heard this before. This is just coming off.
It depends on each individual deal, because the same way that there's single player mode and multiplayer mode in Minecraft, like running it locally versus running it on the internet, there's a potential that you can do that, but it will depend.
Anyone who does this, talk to me. I want to know about it.
It will depend on each individual server that
Whoever
they set
creates
up for.
So it depends on whoever creates it. If it's a centralized, or if whoever creates it decentralizes it.
Yes. It depends on. It's the same conundrum. Oh, what was that movie? Oh, it was Generally New. Oh, it was the virtual world one.
Oh, Ready Player One.
Ready Player One, that's what it was. It's the same concept between Ready Player One, because you had the original owner going, no, I want it to be free market.
Free market to everybody, and then the government tried to centralize it.
Well, a big corporation tries to centralize it, yes. Right now, it's hard to understand that something can be decentralized because...
Well, it's a new idea. America was really the first part of that idea.
Oddly enough, I don't think
we're the first people who enacted it.
Oh, maybe so.
Oh, we were by far the first people to enact it, correctly at least. Or in a way that worked.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
A lot of people point to Greece, but Greece wasn't really decentralized. It was so corrupt, and so whoever was at the top really just had all the power, and it was centralized on whoever had top power.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. So I wonder if one day, let's say 4 or 5 years from now, I want to have this podcast on the metaverse. I wonder if I can have my own... I can invite people to my crypto wallet, my little space, and I could have like this room where I have people in the metaverse sitting down as I'm lecturing to them, but they're only allowed if they buy my ticket, my NFT. If they can only buy my NFT and I allow them into my room.
I understand what you're saying now. So I get what you're saying. So like if you bought the NFT of a concert hall and you invited people to
my concert hall that I bought.
Yeah, and you invited people into your wallet because it holds your concert hall.
Yeah.
I actually hadn't thought about that before. I was thinking that you went to a server, but instead of a server having different crypto wallets bouncing back and forth, that would be interesting.
What if it's the same? What if that? I mean, you explained the same thing I just did.
Yeah. So I got confused because currently our system is set up that corporations own the server and corporations can turn them on and off at will.
But what if someone creates it and I buy the NFT? So I own the server on my crypto wallet.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. That might be fun. It's a potential. Everything's a potential.
Hey, whoever makes this, talk to me. I want to know how you're going to do it, and I also want to be a part of it. That sounds really cool.
So the hard part with that is having, because that's the whole deal in Ready Player One, having so many different worlds. Granted, they mainly only use these 5, but there's so many different worlds. But if every crypto wallet had a different world,
if every world is an NFT owned by somebody in somebody's crypto wallet,
yeah, that would be interesting. Which is essentially, once we get to a certain point, will eventually lead to something very similar to what we have set up
in the real world.
In the real world.
But a lot harder to access. In the real world, again, somebody can show up to my house and take it from me by force.
Yeah.
Where in this crypto NFT idea, they have to, if I memorize my PIN number or my private key, nobody has access to it but me.
Yeah, currently it's limited to your hard drive. So they can steal everything, but as long as they didn't steal your hard drive.
You can also download it onto a thumb drive.
True, yes.
So as long as you keep that thumb drive safe, nobody has access to your wallet.
Mm-hmm. And theoretically, you could put it onto the cloud as well. And if you're the only one that knows your key, it should be safe.
I wouldn't necessarily. Whoever owns the cloud
could shut off the cloud.
Unless you buy your own cloud with an NFT and you store it in your wallet.
Now you're thinking with portals. I need this NFT to store it in my wallet for this NFT that stores in my other wallet.
Same wallet. You could put it in your same wallet.
No, our wallet's in our wallet, though.
That's all right. That's fine. Infinite wallet.
Infinite wallet.
It's like
Now you're thinking with portals.
Or is it like a wallet of holding, where if I put a wallet of holding into a wallet of holding, we then created black hole and destroy the universe?
The metaverse.
The metaverse.
We destroy
the metaverse.
That is the race that we're in. The biggest struggle will be trying to get everyone on the same page.
Or trying to keep governments out of it.
Because, like, we can set up all these currency systems. We can set up who owns what. We could even set up places or metaverses. It seems that
crypto right now is the deciding factor in if the World Economic Forum gets what they want. If they take control of crypto, if they take control of NFTs, if they take control of everything on the internet, then they're capable of tracking you, tracking everything that you do, and they're able to put a stop to it if they want to.
Mm-hmm.
But if they don't gain control of it, then it's decentralized and the populace gets to truly decide, and it becomes a true America, where the idea of America is that people can control it and the government has no power. So the world could become a true America because nobody can control it, because it's a general consensus.
This is where we're getting into some like New World Order ideas then, huh?
Crypto might be the deciding factor between New World Order and not New World Order.
Yeah, because if government gets control of it,
then they can control everything.
Government in general, like gets
the
control
Chinese
of it.
government or the American government, whichever.
Yeah, gets full control of it, then they can track exactly who does what, where, who owns what, when. Like, they know everything about you, and even where you are currently.
Well, they know that already with our phones. But
Yeah. So, but they would know exactly how much money that you have when. They would potentially know all of your assets. You couldn't lie about, or even, you couldn't pay people under the table anymore. You couldn't hide anything because they're all part of these NFT ledger systems if they get control of it.
Or if they don't, then they can't track what assets you have. They can't track.
Yeah.
Like, you could take your car's title, and they can't even track your car's title because you make it an NFT.
Yes. If you keep all of your wallet information secure like you should, they should never know who actually owns
anything.
They know that it exists.
They know it exists and that it transferred, but
Yeah.
they don't know to who or where.
And the cool thing is you could show up in court and go, hey, I have the NFT of it. I really do own this item.
Yeah.
But as long as you're not in the court situation where you have to prove that you actually own it, they don't actually know who owns it. It would require them to do a whole lot more paperwork, which limits their power significantly.
Which is not a bad thing. Or it goes the other way and we're all under the thumb of the government because they can control if you buy that car title or not.
Yeah, which isn't far off to where we're at anyway.
I was really low on NFTs at first, and now I'm really high on them.
Yeah.
Like, at the beginning of the conversation, I literally said they're useless, worthless, terrible. Now I'm like, wait a second, can I buy my own land on the metaverse and make it an NFT and put it onto my crypto wallet so nobody can touch it?
Currently, no one has. They have made land an NFT. However, the world that
It's owned by a corporation.
Is owned by a corporation. That's
So you
on
don't really
the corporation server.
So you don't really own that piece because the corporation does. So it's centralized.
You
NFT.
own that piece as long as the corporation says you do.
So it's centralized.
Yes.
But there's probably a way to decentralize
There is a potential way to decentralize it. The problem is
Elon Musk, get on it.
The problem is getting all of them to work together properly.
Well, you could just make it a blockchain.
Yes, you can. You can make it a blockchain. But what I'm saying is...
These would be huge files, though.
Yeah,
that would be massive.
Potentially, they could be massive. The problem is they would all have to be made on the same block, though,
so
which is okay.
Yeah, it would be kind of almost like Bitcoin but land. So instead of making money, you're making land. That's not actually land because it's all digital.
Yeah. Great. Now I have to do this somehow.
I know, right? This is a great idea. I like this idea.
Because it's so weird of concept. Because it wraps around to this, you own nothing and you'll be happy, but it's like...
Well, in this case, you do own stuff.
You do own it. It's just not tangible. You own it. It's yours.
If the government gains control, if the New World Order takes control, then you don't own it because they're able to turn off the server.
Yeah.
But if the World Economic Forum or the New World Order doesn't take control of everything, then you really do own it. In fact, that's one of the things that you truly do own and can't be taken from you.
So you'll no longer be limited by...
Real world.
You'll be simply limited by how much processing power your computer has.
And as technology advances, we won't be the limits will be so little. So like right now, I just spent about $2,500 on my computer, and I can do very limited things on it still. Like compared to what we're talking about, my computer couldn't do any of what I'm just talking about. Probably.
Yeah.
As we advance in technology, get better graphics cards, or nowadays they're coming out with these new, I forgot what they're called. They're like extreme graphics cards that can run. They're specifically made for mining crypto.
Oh, I actually haven't heard of these.
You haven't heard of these? Let me look them up real quick.
I know people are building specific crypto mining machines. So now instead of actually knowing which processors to buy and which graphics cards to buy specific cryptos, people are building these crypto mining machines so that casual everyday people can understand less and still get the same crypto mining power.
So you have to be using ASIC, I think is what they're called. Let's see if that's what it is. Click on the link. Application specified integrated circuit. So it's like an extreme graphics card. I was watching a video on it. It basically runs at 10 to 12 times the power of a graphics card. So it can run. So originally, a graphics card was created to replace the hard drive. Not replace it, but be able to use specific pieces of the hard drive to play video games mostly.
So there was computers were there was a idea that over time the processing power of a computer should double. Like every year it should double. I forget what it's called. I should know this. It's leaving my mind. It's okay. The processing power should double. Well, there was one year that they couldn't quite get it to double. And so instead of building on the CPU, they just put 2 CPUs in it. And that second CPU eventually became the graphics card.
Which is now referred to as a GPU.
Yeah.
And so this is so they have this new thing coming out, and they're trying to advance it really fast, and it moves insanely quickly. So the way that mining works is they try to run as many computer tries to run as many equations as possible, and whoever finds a specific equation, it's almost like running a lottery and scratching off millions of tickets per second. And if you hit the lucky ticket, then you get 12 bitcoins. Only every 10 minutes does somebody win the lottery. So it's based off of time, not how many people are running it. So the more scratch-off tickets that you can run, higher likelihood you have of scratching off the correct ticket.
So I understood it differently, and it could just simply be different cryptocurrencies.
This is a Bitcoin specifically.
Okay, Bitcoin specifically. That makes sense. Other cryptos recognize, so instead of scratching off different lottery tickets, running an algorithm, everyone's working towards a goal, and there's a way to determine how much work each mine has done, and based off of how much work your mine has done to solve the algorithm, it will assign a specific amount of crypto according to how much work you did, or your mine did. Currencies can differ, so Bitcoin may work one way and other
ones work other ways.
Yeah.
So they have these new things called ASICs, or application specific integrated circuits, which are made to specifically run as many equations or scratch off tickets as possible. So if we can take a GPU or originally a CPU, so originally we had CPUs running different algorithms trying to scratch off these tickets, or running algorithms, and they're like, you know what, this isn't fast enough. The people playing video games created something that can do this a lot faster, so we're going to use this new thing called GPU. Well, then they're like, wait, if video games can have a specific GPU, then we can create our own to run algorithms. And so it's like those giant supercomputers that we used to have that took up an entire room, but now it's like these mines literally are that big. They have that many different ASICs running at the same time, so they'll have like hundreds of these units working, and they're just sitting there running these algorithms trying to guess the right one.
Yeah, so this is kind of interesting because this is why the graphics card market got really weird for a minute, because at the time they just released, it was the 30 series, the NVIDIA 30 series, but crypto hadn't come out with these ASICs yet. So all of the crypto miners decided to buy up all of these graphics cards, raising the price from originally $300, bumped it up to $2,000 each because they couldn't get enough processing power. And now we have something specifically designed for crypto, being these ASICs.
So I wonder if pretty soon we'll have something specifically designed for metaverse, so something for NFT trading or NFT storage or crypto storage. So it's able to run it at light speed or almost faster than light speed to pass information.
It's definitely possible. It's the same concept of being able to run your own server from your house, right? So big corporations can run servers for huge video games, or huge, like Facebook has their own server, but you could also have an at-home server just for yourself. Similar to what you're saying, having your own crypto storage.
Your own
idea?
crypto wallet that
Y-
creates.
your-
Yeah. So I buy myself this. Let's call it. I'm gonna create a name real quick. Give me a second. Crypto specific integrated circuit. So specifically made to holding your NFT world. So you create your
Yeah.
own NFT world. So it's basically a wallet that can hold more information than just your wallet. So I can have
Yeah.
my own lecture hall in there, that like a case in point lecture hall. That's an NFT
So-
that I own that nobody else can shut down. So I have my own server
Mhm.
in this NFT.
Potentially, all of this is we're getting to the space of we're not there yet. So it's everything.
But we're not far.
No, we're not far.
Really close to a lot of that.
We're not far, but we're still on the dreaming side of the spectrum. So, like, everything that you think about, you can do. How it's going to be set up, there's a lot of different ways it could be set up. And some are going to be better than others. So you could have your own multiverse in your own crypto wallet. That's fine. But the ones that will really, or what you're looking for, which is being able to share with other people, will have to be much bigger than that.
One of the first ideas I had for case in point was I saw this little video of Oculus where these people could interact with each other, and that's going to be with the Oculus 3. And I immediately thought of, I want to be live with my audience. I want to be able to reach people from across the world. We're all wearing this headset or on our computers, and I can be on a stage and I can be talking, and I can literally see in this virtual crowd people's avatars, and I can point at people and be like, you three people come up here and let's have a talk. Let's chat about whatever you want to talk about. Let's just have a conversation. And you can literally buy tickets to my virtual world, my virtual event. And if I can just host this whole thing in my crypto wallet, one of my biggest worries was being shut down by Facebook, because currently Facebook owns most of the metaverse, and I didn't want to be shut down. So if somebody does this, if somebody creates an NFT case in point lecture hall, then I can do that and nobody can touch it.
Because you want to have like a safe space where you can share with other people.
That's mine.
That's yours.
In history, look at people who didn't agree with Abraham Lincoln. They tracked him down and shot him.
Yeah.
I can be anywhere in the world in a hidden location and talk to anybody I want to, and nobody can sneak up behind me and shoot me in the back of the head.
Yeah. And
I can reach thousands of people and
It's-
be untouched.
you're talking about something that, in order for people to even think about using it, you're going to have to. It's a lot bigger than what you think. Your idea is a whole lot bigger than what you think. It's not like. There's not going to be one metaverse like what you think there will be. There will be as many different metaverses as there are cryptos right now. There
In
will
this
be
case,
some. There
in
will
the
be
scenario I'm talking
some.
about.
Yeah. There will be a few main ones. For instance, the Facebook metaverse versus the Amazon metaverse versus some other metaverses. And there will be some open metaverses as well, like the whole wide world of the internet. Anyone can make a website. Getting traction to that website is going to be difficult, but anyone can make a website. So when you say a place for like your own interaction where you can interact with people, like we have stuff like that today, but they're not connected to cryptos, so they're technically not the security that you're looking for.
Another reason that I would use this, another implication, is places in like Afghanistan or China or North Korea where you can't be a Christian. It allows people of Christianity to worship and not be persecuted. It creates this whole underground system. Now, this also could be negative. You could also take the Nazis. How hard would it be to stomp out Nazis on a cryptocurrency metaverse?
Yeah.
Nigh impossible.
Yeah.
But you also couldn't shut down the people trying to fight the Nazis.
Yeah.
Or it'd be hard. It'd be difficult.
That's kind of like the free will conundrum, right? we created something, or God created something with free will, but now they have the choice of doing wrong, but they also have the choice of doing good. So like,
I personally think that it would be worth it. It would be worth the risk of something terrible happening versus being able to keep the good alive. Because evil's going to survive no matter what. Evil's always trying to crush good.
Yeah.
Evil's just going to be there. But in this case, if it works how we're talking about, then it'll be so much harder for evil to track down the good.
True.
Because now, the Afghanistan government has to do is go house to house and be like, oh, look, you have the Bible app on your phone. We can now behead you, which is actually happening in places like that, where if you had it all on crypto, you could have your Bible app on your crypto wallet, and they couldn't get in.
Yeah, that would be hidden from them. They would be able to see that you had a crypto wallet, but they wouldn't be able to see.
They might not even be able to see that you have a crypto wallet. What if you downloaded it on a flash drive?
That's true.
They would have to illegalize computers.
Which they can do, but that also
that's
limits is a whole lot harder to do than that. Yeah. So one thing that I fail to understand about crypto is currently everything that you can do with crypto, you can do in the real world. It functions very different, but you can do it in the real world. It's
more secure than the real world, though, or can be.
It can be when used correctly. It can be, yes. So because every crypto has some, I don't want to say server, because it's not like you could shut off Bitcoin right now, because there's so many
so many people following the ledger.
Yeah, there's so many people following the
blockchain.
Ledger. They can't necessarily turn it off. The problem is there's some of them that can be turned off because they set it up that way. So we're going to be struggling for a long time.
We're going to be fighting for the ones like Bitcoin that can't be turned off.
Yeah, well, that's the reason why they're saying Bitcoin's the gold standard, is because it is our reference point. Even the term gold standard was originated when they moved when
we moved away from it. Well, it didn't really exist until we moved away from it.
But so before gold was even the currency, like they used trade goods, and the king told you that this gold coin had value and that you could trade it for things. And people were confused on like, how is this gold valuable, until they started trading things.
Until they started using it to get goods and services.
Yeah.
Because the king told them they could.
Yeah, and now it's like second nature, going, well, yeah, the coin has value. That's how I get food. Or that's how I pay for rent or whatever else.
But honestly, it's just monopoly money.
Yeah.
Well, right now we're just living in a world of different monopoly monies.
Yeah.
And our current monopoly money can be printed as much as it wants by the government.
Yeah, that is the flaw that we're facing right now, is the government decides how much their money there is, and it's currently being, and has been run by people that didn't value
a limit
on how much that is. So, and like cryptos where there is a limit. There are some that it just continues, which is why we need to pick the correct ones and do it correctly, which is why Bitcoin's the gold standard, or they're calling Bitcoin the gold standard. It's the definition of what we want cryptos to be. Kind of like why you would make a starting episode on your podcast of what you want your podcast to be. So you can go back when you're in the future and want to go, hey, what are we even supposed to be doing? You can go back and go, oh, this is the reference point. Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be secure, formed, where no one can mess with it. No one has influence over it.
Eventually, I could probably sell this podcast as a NFT, or give it away as an NFT so that you can hold it in your crypto wallet, so that a big place can't, a Facebook or YouTube or something can't shut it down.
Yeah, well,
I can just send it to someone and they can hold it in their crypto wallet.
Well, think about all your subscription services. what if all of those were just an NFT that
Instead of a subscription
service? They already have cryptos that act like fuel. Let's see. Ethereum has. Some people call Ethereum the fuel that gets placed. Anyway, if your NFT, if your contracted NFT said, "I'll take a Bitcoin out every month, but in return, you get an access code to Netflix or Disney Plus or whatever else."
Or this podcast.
It's the same idea. And then when you didn't want your subscription service, well, then you sell your NFT to someone who does. Or you just give it back to the company.
That would be interesting, trying to sell your NFT and nobody's buying it because this podcast is bad. No one will buy my stupid stock in this podcast.
That would be funny.
I'm just stuck with this dumb podcast.
But some of them will just be free NFTs that there's as many as you want. But, that's not going to be all of them. And there's value in both in some ways. Because you want, if your NFT was this podcast, well, you don't want to have a limited amount of them.
No, I want it to be pretty close to unlimited.
Yeah.
Each time someone asks for it, I want to give it to them.
And you could have different tiers of NFTs if you wanted to.
So I could have some people have access to some content, while people who, I could have a free version of the NFT.
Yeah.
Everyone who asks, I send them an NFT. They can listen to the podcast. And then if people subscribe to it, then I can give them additional content or an additional place to go with their NFT as a ticket.
Yeah. And I want to reiterate, we already have systems in place that are very similar to what we're saying, but they're not NFTs.
So they can be hacked.
Yet.
A lot easier.
In some ways, yes. So we are now trusting big corporations for the big corporations' security to make sure all of our information is safe. Yes.
Thanks, Facebook. You've never failed at that.
That was a funny thing that happened because they dropped off the map for a little bit and then miraculously got 10 times as many people for some reason. It's all right. Not that many, but you know what I mean. That was funny. That was interesting. They totally weren't just replaced by bots or anything.
No, absolutely not. Anyways.
No. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting world because we don't understand it yet because we know that it can be done without them. But we're also trusting big corporations to keep it working how it's working.
Right now, I think we're in the early stages of where they were in the 90s, where they're like, so there's this thing that's the internet, and there's all of these things we can do with it, but we don't actually know what we can do with it. But now, since we've had the internet, we're allowed to think further than we were before back in the 90s.
Yeah.
We have a better starting point.
Because in the 90s, you went, okay, I want to advertise my business. I guess I'll buy, I actually don't know what they did. Newspapers and billboards.
We weren't alive in the 90s.
We weren't alive in the 90s. I was technically alive in the 90s, 1999.
We weren't alive in the 90s.
But
we were not conscious people.
Advertising on billboards or your local newspaper, you hoped you did something good enough to be in the newspaper so that people read the newspaper and figured out that you were a business, or you put ads in the newspaper.
Now you put the ads on the internet.
Yeah, you put the ads on the internet, and businesses have popped up all over the place. There's so many garage, just businesses that happen in people's garages.
I don't know what you're talking about. I would never do that.
Yes, Uncle Sam. No one would ever do that.
I'm looking around.
Are we in a garage?
No, we're technically in a basement.
But
you can go in the garage if you want.
Yeah. Well, what? Oh, I guess we could. That's weird. Okay. That requires so much work.
No, I didn't say it was a good idea. I just said if you wanted to, we could go be a business in the garage. Then your analogy would make more sense for us.
Yes.
instead of being in the basement.
Okay.
Anyways,
but yeah,
that's a good place of filler right there. If I need any filler,
filler. We won't need filler.
no, we won't. We're having a really good conversation.
Good.
Yeah, it's just so interesting the nuance that we could have. All I need is somebody smarter than me. I have the ideas, and I need someone who can do it.
Well, that's what money's for. Oh wait.
Oh wait, I have no money.
That's why you should like and subscribe and share all this stuff.
Woo! Hey, if you can do any of this, reach out to me. I'd love to help fund you. Eventually.
Yeah. We'll take out massive student loans to pay off people making NFTs.
I'm down to do that. Legitimately, eventually.
I've actually never thought of that. Hold up. If I need money but can't get a loan, why don't I just enroll in school to get a student loan? That's terrible. Don't do that.
That's a terrible idea.
That's
Don't
a
do
terrible idea. Don't do that. That's a bad idea.
We are not financial advisors.
We are not financial advisors. Nope.
We are not financial advisors. I'd like to repeat, not financial advisors.
You need to make a clip going, this is Case in Point, and I'd like to remind you that we are not financial advisors through any point of this video, and then just play the same clip 3 times. This is Case in Point, and I'd like to interrupt this segment of the video to remind everyone that we are not financial advisors.
Cool, I'll use that. Thank you. You just clipped it. I'll clip what you just did.
Okay.
You did it for me.
Woo. All right. No, it's definitely weird because it's definitely this 2 different worlds thing. And nowadays, if you're talking about the internet,
A lot of people are using, instead of saying real world and I've been using real world and not, but what a lot of people have been doing is saying tangible world and virtual world, because the virtual world is becoming real world. The more we talk about actually having a lecture or a conversation in the metaverse, that's now becoming the real world.
it is becoming more and more the reality we live in. Yes, it's going to be, the lines are going to blur between what we call the real tangible world and what is the virtual world, because in the same way that the internet was created, that was very much the virtual world of their time. So to say that you will have social interactions on the internet back then
It would be
kind of
absolutely
crazy.
ludicrous.
Like Facebook being able to ping a message across the internet super fast. Like email took an hour to just update email.
And now I send a text and it goes across the whole world instantly
Yeah.
in milliseconds.
Yeah. So it's not, if it's going, I almost don't like saying real world and virtual world, because it's going to be the same world.
Yeah, it's going to be
We're going to
tangible and non-tangible world.
It's kind of like socially acceptable versus not socially acceptable, because like people don't understand what it is, but you don't necessarily need to understand the internet to use the internet.
Well, no, we're
Unfortunately.
constantly doing it.
Yeah.
Like, all the time. You're always in the... I mean, people open up their phone and they use Google real quick, and they just search up whatever they want. And that's not even difficult. Like, they've made it so easy that people who've never done this before, people who've been alive for 90 years, can now just use Google.
Yeah. And part of the reason why crypto in general is not very accessible or understandable, just because we haven't had that part of development yet. But if you, at the same time, it's going to be this weird fight between the free world and the
New World Order.
New World Order, because you're going to want this ability to not know a whole lot about it, but still be able to use it, similar to the internet that we have today. But you're also, and the intuitiveness that brings, but you're also going to want the freedom that needing to know a little bit more, but having the freedom to be able to use it and not have everything tracked anyway, because you wanted this intuitiveness. So it's going to be an awkward balance.
I think we're going to have to, unfortunately, me and your generation, Gen Z, is going to end up leaving behind a lot of people. I think that they're just going to die in the virtual world.
In some ways, some people are using the virtual world as a crutch to escape the real world, which isn't healthy.
It's not healthy at all. That's bad. Don't do that.
Yeah, there's... Have you seen the videos of the people who literally live in the virtual world because they, it is a better... Sorry, say again?
Incels?
Incels? I haven't seen those. But I've seen people that, like, live with virtual goggles on their face all the time. Like, 100% sleep in them, eat in them all the time. And, like, wake up out of bed, go to their little... have to physically walk to their car station that is a physical representation of their virtual car. Drive their virtual car with this real steering wheel. Go to the shower, like their real shower, but there's a virtual shower that looks better. So it's a better world for them because it's the virtual world and not the real world.
So
it's
they have
weird.
They have their whole house.
They have their 10 by 10 cubicle set up, bed, car, shower.
Why do you even need a car? Just because they like it?
Because in the virtual world, that way they can drive to work in the virtual world and work in the virtual world and then drive home in the virtual world.
Because the drive home is that important that they had to add the car.
Because, yes, because they wanted it to be as real world as possible, but they didn't want to live in the real world. I'm going to say that again. We wanted it to be as real world as possible, but not wanted to actually be in the real world because the virtual world was more pleasing to them than the actual real world they lived in.
When I cough, I click my mute mic, and then I cough over here, and your mic isn't picking it up.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Okay.
I'm taking precaution. That's one reason I like two mics is when I was with my mom, I couldn't do that.
That's fair.
So that sounds awful.
No, it's not mentally healthy.
I'd say
at all.
Hashtag Matrix by choice.
Yeah, that's not even cryptos are not involved in this
they were
in any way.
They were in the real world.
Yeah.
And then they decided, you know what? Screw the real world. I just want to jump into not the real world.
For some reason, their brain clicked and went, the virtual world is better than the real world. Therefore, I should live in the virtual world. And have made it possible to live in the virtual world by making weird physical machines, I guess. Like, they have their bed, they
have tangible objects, but they have everything programmed to know exactly where they're at, so they can grab a steering wheel or lay down in bed and not fall on the floor.
Yeah.
But
yeah, no, it doesn't make sense. It's not supposed to, like, they definitely have some mental issue, in my opinion. However, they've chosen that life, and I guess that's their choice.
I guess that's their choice. We all choose our way of dying, and I guess that's how they're choosing to die.
I don't know how they make money in the virtual world, but they do it somehow. I don't know.
Man, that's insane.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with cryptos. That's literally just
Metaverse. We're talking about metaverse. That was kind of on topic.
yeah, metaverse. Okay.
I'm not as against the metaverse as everybody. It's something that I'm going to use kind of Rush Limbaugh here a little bit. Rush Limbaugh was kind of the pusher of AM radio, and everyone's like, oh, well, it's just going to die. And he's like, no, I'm going to take it, and I'm going to make it a conservative platform.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's lacking nowadays. I think conservatives missed YouTube. Because I think the current AM radio is YouTube. And I think conservatives missed it. I think the idea of freedom of thought missed YouTube.
Yeah.
Or YouTube went away from it.
Well, that makes sense. Because when you think... It's so weird because people stereotype conservatives as people that don't think art makes money and don't think think that you have to have physical labor jobs. Well, not necessarily physical labor jobs. You have to have a trade. You have to have a reason why people pay you. But conservatives don't see how to get there. And I feel like that's for the most part. I could be wrong.
I throw myself in the conservative category vaguely, because I'm more nuanced.
Mm-hmm.
I don't fall in the small conservative. Well, that's the way it's always been,
Mm-hmm.
because I see that the metaverse is existing. I see that cryptocurrency is existing. So instead of going, well, I think it's a trap and I think it's dumb, or something like that, I go, okay, how do we innovate it to be useful for society correctly? How do we make it so the governments can't control us? Because that's the part of conservative I am. I'm a true original libertarian, and or liberal, where I want as little government as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And how can I fight against governments and yet still be good and within law?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting because you go on social media platforms and you definitely see it overrun by more left-leaning views, but that's also the group of people that when someone would say, here's my hopes and dreams, they say, go get your hopes and dreams. Not that conservatives wouldn't say that. When
conservatives will always say, I have someone who comes in mind. I mentioned a podcast. I'm like, hey, I want to go do this podcast. And they're like, okay, well, how about like you do something real? And I went, what do you mean? And he's like, well, you could buy property. You could go buy a house and start there. And I'm like, well, I could, and I probably eventually will. But right now there's this thing happening. There's this movement of podcasts, and I won't miss it. I refuse, because it's happening now.
Yeah. And I'm going to call it an art platform. It's almost an art. I don't know. Art's subjective.
It's communication.
Yeah, communication. But, I don't know. Each platform is kind of different in its own way.
It's the modern day newspaper.
True.
Or journal.
In some ways, yeah.
Instead of James Madison writing Alexander Hamilton a letter to say, hey, how about this new idea? Instead, it's Kaysen talking to Tanner, posting it on Spotify to or YouTube to reach people so that I can get other people to hear me too. So it's a lot less limiting to ideas. It's not a letter. It's public.
That's true.
But it's decentralized.
It's also more public than a letter, which has its benefits and not.
Well, if I want to send you an email, I can send you an email. But instead, I want this on air, so it's a podcast.
Unfortunately, society's set up to right now where you have to be important in order to be able to reach the important people. And in order to be important, they have to make fun of the important people. Or not necessarily make fun. Make the important people potentially upset about what they posted.
Yeah.
They have to be... In order to be a player in the game, first you have to be threatening in the game.
First, people have to dislike you. One of the funniest things to watch is if you're extremely left-wing and the right wing goes, "You're crazy, you're a left-wing nut." Well, all the left-wing people flock to you like there's no tomorrow, and you instantly gain, like, it's like free advertisement. Mm-hmm. And then if somebody is, even if the right wing or not, gets called a right-wing extremist, you see the whole right go behind him and go, "Hey, you're our friend. We like you." And you see it time and time again. Anytime that the left or right attacks each other, it just, like, whoever they attack gets huge funding, huge following. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Left, you can attack me if you want.
I don't even know what to say to that. Like,
Give me good. Give me real good.
Throw all of your diss tracks this way.
Could I have a hit piece written about me? That would be nice. I'll take that.
Well, yeah. Okay.
You know what? I think that's a pretty good ending note. Thank you so much, Tanner, for talking. It was a good time. You have 15 seconds or less. Word of advice to everybody.
Don't be a jerk.
If you would like some custom art done, please contact my friend, Jacob DeLong. I'll put his Instagram handle in the description. Thank you to Zachariah Miller for the awesome theme music. Check him out at ZMK Typhoon. I will also put his YouTube link in the description. Have a topic that you're passionate about? Well, I'd love to have you on the podcast so we can all hear your case in point.